Our next topic is a sort of category focus. And we're about to use kombucha to give us a real lens into the competitive dynamics of fast growth categories. And I know it's hard to, I think the issue here is it's hard to find a proposition that's truly unique and has no competition. I look at the Hella Bitters guys here, and there are a lot of bitters popping up, you know, and there's a lot of cold brew popping up. And so the question is, as investors start getting attracted to these categories, what happens to the companies and the category as they get funded? And to help us with that, we've got 3 brands who are representative of the lead pack of the kombucha category. And they've each attracted a significant amount of attention in their own right, while also getting a lot of momentum from the overall boom in kombucha consumption. Now, this really isn't so far from other categories where we've seen a big influx of money in a short period of time. Coconut water, we heard about yesterday, HPP juices, craft beer, enhanced waters have all had investors at one time or another fighting to get into the category. While the arrival of that cash gives hardworking entrepreneurs a real boost, we're here to explore how it changes perspectives both inside and outside of the company, and outside of the category and the companies in it. And to sort of underline how that competition, how that money can change a category. In kombucha, as we were in here yesterday, another deal happened in the space, and we saw Molson Coors buy out Clearly Kombucha. So here to sort through how all this money is changing the race within the category, we're so lucky to have Jamie Danek of Humm Kombucha, Daina Trout of Health-Ade, and Sean Lovett of Revive. We don't have Daina. We have Jamie Danek of Humm Kombucha, Sean Lovett of Revive. So guys, let's go. Marty Wall, stand up.
Very tall Marty.
Are you in here? We should be able to see you if you are.
Come on up.
Do you want to come up? Join us at this?
Come on, Marty. And then Daina's going to show up.
Come on. It's okay. Yeah. It's kombucha. Everyone's friendly. Thank you.
What's up, Marty?
Not what I was planning.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
All right, so.
Good to see you, man. Yeah.
There's been, and just so everyone knows, Brew Doctor just received a pretty significant chunk of investment as well. And that just, again, speaks to the kind of heat in the category. The leading brands have all taken on some kind of significant cash. What's that do in terms of category dynamics? Are you all of a sudden thinking about out innovating other brands, or out executing them, or out raising them to the next round of capital? Jamie?
I think when you get funded, you get more sophisticated. You get more information as to how to do what you're doing better, and it gets more competition with everyone. So everyone's funded. It's kind of hard if one of us was funded and nobody else was. I think that'd be really there wouldn't be good competition there. So I feel like our game has been upped quite a bit since that has happened. I focus on the category all the time. The top 5 or 6 brands is most of the category, so that is the focus. But really, I don't think you can compete at this level at the top 5 or 6 without the top 5 or 6 without being in that position. So I think it puts us all at the same level playing field that we were 5 years ago when none of us were funded.
So you're building the set, but are you just building it for yourselves still, or are you still building it for that lead pack?
You have to build a set for all the kombucha, everybody's kombucha, because if you just focus on yours, you're hitting a teeny tiny part of the industry. There's too much education that needs to happen. And so the different kombuchas serve different people's tastes. So you want more kombucha on the shelf. That'll actually help all the individual brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sean, with the money in, how does it change the way that you're...
Thanks for joining, Daina.
Hi, Daina.
Hi. I had to open a really quick account down the street.
How'd that go?
It's good.
Yeah? See, I got to ask, though,
God.
do they carry these guys?
Yeah, they do.
So is it a situation where you have to be in to join the gang?
Yeah, pretty much.
So this is fun. You're all out west where the cat. So, have you all started to focus on each other a little more, knowing that the competition's been defined by a lead pack? So, you all started to focus on each other more, or are you still chasing the category leader and figuring out ways to introduce to retailers the idea that you could present a clear alternative?
I think there's, is this working? Here, I'll borrow that.
I think there's two opportunities. One is that the category is growing, right? So as investment dollars have come in, the category itself continues to grow, as well as there's a clear, shareholder, share leader in the category that I think we can all sort of peel off of as we're doing it. So the benefit is, as the category grows, more and more consumers are going to come over from other categories. So I think that's been, the big benefit for the investment coming in is that everybody's educating the consumer about kombucha, right? So we get more consumers coming in.
So, Marty, I want to know, is there pressure to move faster, knowing that people are all kind of sitting on war chests?
We actually make decisions at BrewDoctor kind of based on where we see ourselves fitting in the market, and we knew it was a race prior to investment. I don't think we're moving any faster. We're looking for help and advice, and part of the reason we chose the investors that we did, which is Castanea Partners, was because they provided some expertise for us in ways to get to market. So that from that perspective, we definitely were looking at ways to go fast. Now, with all that being said, we also, to echo Jamie's point, we also felt like it was really important for us to interact with our consumers and still drive awareness within the category. As we looked at some of the data that was coming in as we were meeting with investors, we knew that there was a really low purchase intent and awareness on the kombucha category. So we looked at some information from late 2016 that said that the awareness and purchase intent was only at 4%, right? So we took a lot of what we were doing in revenue and started plowing that back into sampling and awareness. We felt like that was an important play for us to talk about our points of difference with BrewDoctor, but mostly just to talk about how to drive the category and how to talk about the benefits of the overall space, knowing that we would all benefit from that.
That's hard, though, right? So you're in this incredibly early stage category still relative to the rest of beverage, and you have the pressure of having investors on board and people anointing it in many ways as real potential for growth. So how do you handle that, Daina?
Well, what's interesting about our company, I think, is that we had investment very early on. So from year 2 to year 6, we're 6 years old, we've had investment. And I don't think it changed our speed or changed the pressure. We were always turbo mode, and I think that's why we attracted that attention early on from investors. So that didn't change, but I think it has changed the speed of the category growth, but that's to all of our benefit. One thing that's really unique, I think, about the kombucha industry, we talked about this a little bit on the pre-call, is there's so much white space. So there's a place for all of us right now, and I think as that space starts to thin out, maybe there'll be some more competition, but right now there's a somewhat friendly, fair, competitive culture, I think, within kombucha.
Do you guys worry about the fun going out of it?
The what?
The fun. I mean, there is.
If it's not fun, I'm not going to do it anymore.
I'm sorry?
If it's not fun, I'm out. So I don't worry about the fun. No, we got a ways to go. We have a lot of white space to cover.
There's, there's always a fear, though, that an influx of cash is going to kind of force someone to cut corners, pump in more sugar, start elbowing people out of the way at the shelf. How do you keep things polite? Because it's a cutthroat business, right?
Well, I think so far we've benefited from coming together as an industry, with a kombucha group that has allowed a dialogue to happen, I think, amongst founders or CEOs. I think Daina and I in particular have had conversations about, things we haven't liked about what each other have done.
Friendly texts.
Yeah. And that's been good. I think it has created an awareness that we're all going to win in the end if the race that we're racing in is a bigger race, right? So as a race car guy, I'd much rather race at a national level than small regional race. So it's cool to be part of this category with, these great competitors.
Yeah, no, so that ability to text each other is something that we did explore, and that idea that you guys all know each other, and yet your staffs get bigger. The money helps fund growth of the brand and of the organization. How do you keep your organization saying we're growing the category and the brand?
And you talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just talk about it as you're bringing new people in, and you talk about what it looks like and how it's been and how we want it to be and how you're represented in your company. Yeah.
One thing I'll add is I think if you look at the category as a whole, not everybody is best friends. I think there are a few of us that have realized the opportunities in this big blue ocean of people that still don't know what kombucha is, or they still call it kombuki. And those of us that have that alignment, I think, are the ones that are texting and ensuring that our sales reps aren't getting a sale in order to cut a sale from someone else. Instead, you focus on what you do differently instead of what someone else doesn't do, et cetera. But there are brands that, especially those in the smaller, I think in the smaller space, a lot of those do cut at the larger brands. And I think because for them, they're looking in the box of kombucha and they're trying to, scrape any piece of market share from any of the four of us here, and plus GT. But as soon as you get out of that box, you realize there's so much opportunity, and you just think a lot bigger.
You stay on the offensive, as we've heard this morning as well. It's all about offensive.
Yeah. It's a big part of my training, by the way, and I think these guys too, to have your team not
engage.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the things, my experience is a little different. These guys all started these companies and have really grown them in an amazing way. I came from craft beer.
Right.
So I came from a craft beer space where there were a handful of brewers when I started in craft beer that were doing a really good job, and then the market took a downturn. I was in it in the late 90s when it bottomed out, and it came back in the 2000s, and it came back stronger than ever. And And what we saw was in craft beer was the competitive nature in that space was fine in the trade, in the marketplace. We all played, for the most part, we all played by the rules and those sorts of things. But we also found a way to find our points of difference in that space and grow the overall category. And that group actually has a really good organization in the Brewers Association where they actually come together and do a good job as an industry of defining what they're trying to do and growing the overall category. Now, they've had their ups and downs if you look at that space, but overall, I think they're a model to look at in that perspective.
And in that regard, the kombucha category has had a lot of, has at least an emerging organization, has had a lot of people speaking for the category in a strong way, and a lot of discussion of methods and standards. To that point as well, how much did the recall of 2010 make you all understand that there's a certain amount of delicacy in maintaining the category?
We were really small in 2010.
Yeah, you were teeny tiny.
We were teeny tiny, and when we tested our product, we were actually below the 0.5. So I don't know about the testing back then. I'm not really sure. But what happened for us is everybody got pulled off the shelf, and we were tiny, and so we put our stuff everywhere we could. But it did make us realize that there's an issue with the industry, and that we talk about it all the time. It's virtually impossible to brew a raw live kombucha that stays non-alcoholic through the whole distribution chain. And it's an issue for all of us. We actually have our Craft Brewers Association meeting every year, and we discuss it every year and talk about ways to.
I wonder how much standards discussions were part of, the craft industry and are sort of becoming gospel in kombucha.
Well, I think the biggest thing that we have to do to protect our category is to ensure that we're living by the standards of truth in labeling. And I think that, the recall in 2010 was a wake-up call for me, right? We were early as well, going onto shelf in 2010, that not everybody respects that. And so I think we're talking amongst ourselves at this point. And certainly I'm talking to other brands about ensuring that we're building this category with that in mind, right? That, what's on the label is truth. And I think that's important. And we were just talking about that as well.
Yep.
So.
How do you keep your investors from being too aggressive about the opportunity that they see for your brand?
I wouldn't say that the investors are more aggressive than I would be about seeing the opportunity of the brand. I think we're equally excited about the opportunity for the brand and for the category. I think you might think that an investor might be aggressive or more willing to compromise a standard that you're less willing to compromise on in order to get there, but that hasn't actually been the case, and I think, for me at least, and I think the reason for that is the consumer demand is changing as well. Like, I don't think consumers want to buy a kombucha that's super engineered. I think that's the whole point about it, is that it is supposed to be craft. Much like craft beer, you want the real stuff. That's what tastes good. So what's kind of cool about our industry, I think, is that we've taken this conversation seriously, but we've also been cautious and just throwing whatever solution in place that would just take care of the problem but completely compromise something else about the product. And that puts us in a much stronger place now to scale. So I'm actually quite happy that our investors gave us that time because there's more context to it than just compliance.
I work for an extremely ambitious founder. I mean, when you think of it from those perspectives, he's, much like Daina, he's not going to, from an investment standpoint and having them come in from the outside and put demands on us, he's not going to have that happen in a way that would allow for someone from the outside to be more ambitious than he is. So
Sure.
Yeah, I agree from our perspective as well. We put plenty of pressure on ourselves. Nobody else needs to do that for us, the investor. And you choose well, right? We've chosen a great partner that gets us and are willing to support us and help us, they know we already do that. We already got that card.
So you're highly aggressive, or you're highly competitive
Really
with your
motivated.
own goals.
Yeah.
Now, does yesterday's buyout sort of increase the pressure to race to the finish line on those goals? How does seeing someone just get bought out, was that sort of a wake-up moment for you?
I think it got us excited. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like
brand.
more people are interested in the category, and the fact that that came from beer, I think, is pretty interesting. Right now in Europe, the only beer that's growing is the non-alc beer or the low-alc beer. So I think it's just like a really cool space that kombucha can play in pretty easily, both beer and non-alc. I don't know, it got me excited.
I think it's great.
Yeah, good for Clearly.
Great for everybody.
So every time someone gets funded in the category, it's always been great.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd say yes to that.
right.
I mean, I think the theme here that we're all, sort of working on, Jeff, is that at the end of the day, if money comes in the category, the category gets bigger, the awareness gets bigger. Like the Kavita deal, I think, was a big celebration moment for a lot of us, right? Because Pepsi's going to go spend a lot of money to educate the consumer about kombucha, right? That only really helps us in the end. So I think if you have an alternative perspective, it's a defeatist mindset, right? So that's going to happen again now. We've got another big strategic that just invested in the space. They're going to go educate it in channels of business that weren't educated about it before. So it's good.
I mean, of course, you have to make smart business decisions, though, at the same time, right? So, like, there have been distribution examples where, like, we have an exclusive relationship or something like that, and I'm not willing to carve on that in order to let another kombucha company in. And that's not because I have anything against that kombucha company. It's because I want to take those spots. So I don't think it's so kumbaya that we're like, no, you go first, please. But I think we do understand that there's a big pie, and that right now, if we play fairly, compete fairly, we can each take a piece of that. I think we all understand the niche we hold in the market.
I think where the industry is, there's still so much white space that there's enough room for more investment to come in, and there's enough room for more brands. But at some point, there won't be. Yeah.
Some point, someone's going to fight.
Yeah.
Well,
we fight behind the scenes all the time.
Yeah.
Well, we could get better ratings.
if we did it right here.
Y'all, thank you so much. It's always hard to bring competitors on stage to discuss competition. And thank you. And Marty, thank you.